Sorry, I'll go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, wait a minute, sorry.
Count me in. I'll.
You going? You good? You going?
Welcome to Apex Racing TV. My name's Tyler Vickery. Alongside with me is Tyler Maxon and Andrew Woodhouse running the cameras. We just started a race of a 2 hours and 15-minute race for here at Mid Ohio, as we have right now Team Street Survival and driver of Aero Nam leading the field in the GTE class, and then also in the GTDs we have Mid Motorsports with, I believe that would be the number 24, driven by Clint Vigas currently as well in the Mercedes. We do apologize for the technical difficulty we had earlier. We got it fixed. Live timing was not cooperating with us.
No, it wasn't at all, but Aero Nam right now leading in the GTLM class by just about, I think it's 9/10 of a second over Cryptology Orange, driven by Pascal Iannucci. So right now that team leading in the GTLM class. These guys, I didn't quite get a good look at the start, but they did get a decent start, obviously, off to a 1.8 second advantage. And the top three have kind of split away a little bit over fourth place so far in this race.
Yeah, and with the GTEs, we did miss out on qualifying a little bit, but Team Street Survival with Aero Nam starting the car, he ended up qualifying with a quick lap time of a 1:16.1, 7/10 of a second to the good for Cryptology Orange, who Pascal Iannucci is currently driving. As it looks like we had a little bit of an incident of Chase Bonzer and Proximity Racing going wide, as we see the replay here. Just absolute critical mistake. Loses a lot of positions, so he's got to work his way back up now.
Yeah, it was in fourth whenever he made that mistake, so that cost him a lot of time and a lot of spots. And track position here at Mid-Ohio, there's not many places that you can pass here, and because this is a very difficult track, it's very difficult to get by at this track, so track position is really crucial here. So that's going to definitely hurt him in the long run.
Absolutely, and we have 2 hour and 15-minute race tonight, so going to be a lot of strategy involved with these guys, with these teams trying to decide when they want to do the driver changes, when are they going to pit as well. So, and especially with Team Street Survival and with Aero Nam on the cockpit right now, just slowly but surely pulling away from Pascal Iannucci. It's going to be interesting to see how that tandem works together.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. Aero Nam, one of the very fast drivers in the GS class from the Sports Car Championship, over here in the GTLM class with Team Street Survival Racing. That team doing a very good job here in Mid-Ohio so far. Obviously, they've got the pace, and they are just right now stretching the lead.
Yeah, leads right now is up to 3 seconds on Iannucci and Cryptology Orange, so going to be interesting to see how the strategy-wise goes when they do the driver change. But it looks like right now Aero Nam's just going to be running some quick laps here, as he's just committing into every corner right now with full aggression.
Yeah, it doesn't even look like he's really pushing the car. It just looks like he's just calmly driving that car away from the field. It doesn't look like it's too much of a handful on setup. It looks to me as if that team's really got everything nailed down right now. It's going to be interesting to see how it works over the long run for them, but right now at the beginning of the race, they've got looks to be an amazing car with 3-second advantage over Pascal Iannucci.
Yeah, absolutely. And right now, keeping an eye on a few other battles in the GT Le Mans class right now. Third place is Chris Thorman. Looks like he's all by himself in third, and then David Alessi for Bergelian Racing is also hanging on to fourth. Excite Energy, though, having a little issues. They did drop a spot from the start, Started in 4th and now dropped down to 5th, but they are in a close battle though with Begalian Racing, as well as Flying Tortoise and Axon Driver Solutions team, as well, as they are all within reach of each other.
Yeah, all three of those teams right now really close to each other, just about a second and a half separating those teams. So those guys very close together. That battle is definitely going to be a good one because, as you can see, if you look on the track map on your right-hand side of your screen, 4th place is pretty much the best that these drivers at this point in the race can hope for. Now, later on in the race, it's a different story when strategy comes into play, but really, they're not going to pull and catch 3rd right now, not with those top drivers up that far. It's just not going to happen. So these drivers really, right now, their main focus is on getting into the lead of this pack so that they can hopefully chase down that top pack.
Absolutely, and especially with right now, when you look at the, if we do a quick look at the I-rating for the drivers, you have Aeronom, who's got a 6,800 I-rating for Team Street Survival. Pascal Iannucci's got just over a 4,000 I-rating. Then you have David Alessi, who's running really well and keeping Robert Hartley at bay. David Alessi only has a 1422 I rating from what it's showing on here, and Robert Hartley having a over 9,700 I rating. So with Hartley struggling to get around David Alessi, it's kind of interesting to see how this is playing out.
Yeah, and I think that also goes back to the track. This track is such a hard track to pass at that there's really not a whole lot of places without really kind of forcing the issue to get by those drivers. So I think that that's part of the problem. And to be honest with you, I don't really think that I-rating really almost defines speed. This is a great example of that. Robert Hartley with almost 10,000 I-rating is not able to get by David Alessi with 1,400 I-rating.
Yeah, which is a very shock, but it's almost curious to see the strategy, because with it, granted it is a 2 hour and 15-minute race, which I believe will more than likely see 2 stops here, two or 3 stops depending on what the drivers and team preferences are. But it's interesting just seeing that gap just slowly dwindling and falling, and more or less pulling away from Robert Hartley, and especially if he wants to try to catch up to Aeronom and the rest of the drivers for that top 3 in GT Le Mans. It's going to be a very tall task to order.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a hard one for them. And I know from personal experience, this Porsche RSR maximum can go 55 minutes. And here is your second place in GTD, Eric Violet, as they go down the backstretch. He's got a little bit of pressure from Stephen Thomas behind in that Driftline racing car.
Yeah, right now, Stephen Thomas running a little bit better lap times as well. I mean, their last lap time they went by, though, they were dead even, running their quickest lap time so far. But it looks like Stephen Thomas is starting to get a little bit antsy as he's been moving around the wheel a little bit. Looks like he's got the back end a little loose on that. He's having to catch a lot of the slides with the Mercedes.
Yeah, he's definitely fighting that car right now to keep it going that pace, but to be honest with you, I don't think that that's the best option for him, because it doesn't look like he's getting held up that much by Stephen Thomas. So I don't know, it's almost maybe a better idea for him just to kind of calm down and go back and just kind of save some tires right now.
Yeah, and then especially tires are going to be, oh boy, as we got, looked like Stephen Thomas went way off there. That was a great catch, but boy, that could have been disaster.
Yeah, and I think that's back to the point. He's trying to push that car just a little bit too hard this early on in the race. We're very early on in the race. We're about 10 minutes, now 11 minutes into the race. You don't need to be pushing that car this hard at the beginning of the race. It's just not worth the risk.
Yeah, and that's going to be a big make or break as well for the 14 car for Driftline Racing, as they're trying to catch back up to May Motorsports and DTD Motorsports Blue, but that's a big struggle there. It looks like Chase Bonzer is having more issues again. Looking at a replay now here. Whoa, look out. Almost collected another driver there. Boy, that was scary. That was the 32 of Raymond Bader driving for Ricmotech Motorsports White.
Yeah, very close call there. These guys, these guys, I think, are just trying to push their equipment just a little bit too hard. This is a very difficult track, and this is a very long race. You can't really afford here to be making many mistakes because, as you can see, there's not far to go until you hit the wall here, which can be catastrophic for these teams.
Yeah, and especially, and there's not a lot of really safe spots to crash either. I mean, there are a few spots where there's tire barriers, but a lot of it is more Armco, so hitting one of those Armco barriers is not the best choice of option.
No, there's almost no runoff of this track and almost even no gravel traps for people to even get caught in. Even though they don't do much in this game, still it would be better to go into those than it would the wall. But as you can see, there's just a lot of Armco and a lot of wall around this place as David Alessi gets loose. So the track may be very loose right now.
Yeah, looking at the track temp as well, it is currently 70 degrees Fahrenheit air ambient temperature, track degrees of 84 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're going to look at a replay here real quick of David Alessi. Just comes in and wow, that was that rear just snapped very quickly.
Yeah, it was a great save by him. It was a very lucky save in my opinion as well, because that happened in such an awkward point in the corner, and that's kind of a point where you're already focused on your exit and you're not really focused on the turn-in point anymore, so your guard's almost let down, so it's a very difficult thing to catch there.
Yeah, definitely. And to make a quick comparison of the track temps from the Fahrenheit to the Celsius for everyone watching that's international. 70 degrees air ambient temperature, it's equivalent to 21 degrees Celsius. Track temp was at 84, I believe I said earlier, for Fahrenheit, which is about 29 degrees Celsius. So it's a very cool track right now. So kind of shocking to see very low grip levels, but with this track being so narrow as it is, it still takes a lot of precise decision. Ooh, looking at a replay of Russ Ruddick looping it around as well.
Yeah, so that's the same point. Just the track temperature is really cold right now, and to be honest with you, I think these guys are trying to push these cars just a little bit too hard for the track conditions. I mean, this track's a track with a lot of elevation change, a lot of areas where the car is on turn-in and is getting light. So then you add a very low grip level, and that just completely ruins you.
As we're looking now on Cryptology Orange, Pascal Iannucci in the driver's seat right now. 5-second gap between him and Aero Nam and Team Street Survival. However, they are also ahead of Chris Thorman from Coaxial Racing by 5 seconds. So almost pretty much right in the middle of rock and a hard place for Pascal Iannucci, but they're slowly pulling away from Coaxial Racing, but not gaining time on Team Street Survival, which is going to be very costly as this run goes on for Cryptology Orange.
Yeah, it's also going to be a very tough day for him, because as we can see just by the fastest lap time, Aeronam has the fastest lap in this class by just about 5.5 tenths of a second, which if you do that over a few laps, that's over 1.5 seconds in just 3 laps. So that's a big deal for these guys, and you can see Aeronam literally exiting the corner while he's still going down the straightaway. So it's a large gap to catch up, and he's just extending it more and more every single lap that goes on. So I think that these guys are going to have to get interesting with strategy if they want to have a chance at catching Team Street Survival.
Yeah, which will really put in a big factor now, especially seeing how the Porsches, like you said earlier, Tyler, of the Porsches being able to make it roughly 55 minutes for fuel. That's going to really put into factor a two-stop strategy. However, especially looking at Cryptology Orange, do you think it would be more favorable for them to take a three-stop strategy and just try to get fresh tires and close up on Aero Nam when they are on a lot older tires?
See, now I was thinking the complete opposite. Try to go a little bit longer, as we're going to go to commercial break. Right now, we'll be back in just a few minutes with more action of the Ricmotech World Challenge. And welcome back to the Ricmotech World Challenge here in Mid-Ohio. As you can see on your screen right now, Pascal Iannucci with Cryptology Orange, the driver's P2 in the GTLM class, just about 6.7 seconds behind Aeronom and Team Street Survival for the lead overall and in the GTLM class.
And currently right now, no one's had any kind of issues lately, but it's just shocking to see how GT Le Mans is doing. Quick update as well for the GTD class. DTD Motorsports Blue is now took over the lead, as it looks like Clint Vigas and May Motorsports might have had some issues. However, though, the gap is fairly close, as it's only 0.6 of a second, as you can see on the screen now. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this battle takes place.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. Those two drivers pretty much the closest of anyone on the entire track right now, just about half a second covering them. But there's how Eric Viola and D2D Motorsports Blue took over the lead over Clint Vigas in that Beth Motorsports number 24 car.
And it looks like just Clint overdrove it, got on the brakes a little late, and just could not be able to recover in time. And it was easy picking for Eric Violet and driving for DTD Motorsports.
Yeah, definitely an easy move for him, and that's honestly a critical move for him because he can hold up Clint Vigas. Even if he's not faster, this track is such a hard track. You'll hear me say it time and time again. This track is such a hard track to pass at that it's a track where track position is worth everything. So I think that some of these drivers are going to try to risk it on their fuel strategies or risk it on tire strategies just to get track position in this race.
Yeah, I can agree with that. It'll be very interesting to see, as we're right now 20 minutes into this race, and another 30 more minutes approximately, we should start seeing some drivers starting to come in pit side. So going to be very curious to see what kind of strategies take.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that one. And back to what we were saying about the Porsches earlier with their fuel. They can pretty much go about 50 minutes maximum, maybe 55 if you really fuel save. But the safest route for them is to pit at 45 minutes on fuel. That's the safest way to go if you want to be safe. If you want to try to stretch it, you can go 50 minutes or 55 minutes. So this is going to be a difficult one for them because they would have to seriously fuel save if they wanted to make it the entire hour, and then it still would not even be possible to go another hour and 15 minutes. They'd almost have to make a splash and dash as Bobby Childs gets ahead of Stephen Thomas. I just saw on the left-hand side of your screen there. Get a replay of that one.
Looks like another... Let's see... Oh,
ooh,
boy,
big twitch there. And, oh, that was very close for your race leader, Aeronom.
That could have been very, very disastrous for Aeronom. We're looking on board of Stephen Thomas. Just looked like the rear just snapped and doing everything he can to hang on to it. Good job not hitting the Armco barrier, but boy, that definitely gave a scare.
Yeah, amazing saves. I think I've actually seen some of the best saves I've ever witnessed in this race so far, and we're only 22 minutes into it. So yeah, these track conditions are definitely proving very difficult for these drivers. I don't think that really any of them right now, apart from maybe Aeronom, have got the setup right.
Yeah, it's just that Team Street Survival car is just having just an unbelievable run, and the setup, like you're saying, just dead on perfect, that none of these other drivers could be able to match. And it's showing it off a good example right now with Aeronom pulling right now, actually starting to hold a little bit, holding at a 5.4 second gap over Pascal Iannucci and Cryptology Orange. But then when you look at third and Coaxial Racing, just a huge gap from between second and third, almost an 11-second gap from Chris Dorman trying to catch up to Iannucci. So that is a big difference there.
Yeah, definitely a big difference. And this is what we were saying now. These top three are actually really far ahead of everyone right now. And then you just kind of have Robert Hartley just kind of on his own in that Excite Energy racing car in fourth. And I mean, everyone really is spread out, to be honest.
Yeah, and I mean there is a few positions further down in the GTD class where right now Clint Vigas is only about a second and a half behind Eric Violet. Looks like one of the cars might have just had an issue for Driftline Racing, I believe, or they might have just let one of the GTE cars go by. As whoa, boy, that was Clint Vigas, and that was another big scary moment for Aerodom getting around Clint Vigas.
Yeah, I think Aerodom is definitely going to be completely wiped tired after this because he will have had about 6 panic attacks already just getting by all these GTD cars. And I think they're struggling more than the GT-LM cars, especially this Ferrari for Team Street Survival. It's definitely a difficult task to get by drivers. And then whenever you add on the fact that they can hardly even hold on to the car, that adds just a completely another element to it.
Yes, we're on board right now with Aeronam, trying to get around Eric Violet, trying to be as patient as he can, and almost tried to make an outside move, and just Eric Violet's just not giving him an opportunity to be able to get around, which is giving Iannucci an opportunity. Is almost made contact with Eric Violet there, trying to get around the GTD leader.
Yeah, almost making contact there, and this is a deal here. Aeronam could start to get impatient, and that could cause crashes. I've seen it happen in the past, and I know it won't be the last time I will see it. The leader gets impatient, and then they start making moves that they really shouldn't have made. I think that Aeronam, knows that he needs to be patient, but I think that he was also starting to get a little bit frustrated there with Eric Violet.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I kind of don't blame Eric Violet for being a little bit aggressive with the way his lines were, as he was trying to keep Clint Vigas to more than a second gap, and now with that happening, Clint Vigas is only 0.4 of a second on Eric Violet for the GTD lead, as it looks like Pascal Iannucci for Cryptology Orange is closing in on this 2-car battle for the lead in GTD now.
Yeah, and he's also starting to close on Aeronam. If I'm looking up at the top right-hand, or the top left-hand corner, he's starting to close up just a little bit, but this traffic could definitely play a factor in it because he's not catching the traffic where he needs to be if he's going to try and catch Aeronam in that car, because right now that car looks just about unstoppable.
Absolutely, yeah, and then you can almost put into effect that huge gap that Aeronam lost to Pascal Iannucci was from the lap traffic, as we're looking further down the GT Le Mans field, as Ricmotech Motorsports White is having a fairly decent battle with Axon Driver Solutions with Dean Chen, and right now Dean Chen is trying to make an opportunity on the long straight, but I don't think he's going to close up quick enough.
No, I don't think he's going to have just enough, but still just about a 0.3 of a second gap now. They're very close. So Raymond Badger is definitely going to have to do a little bit of defending here from Dean Chen if he wants to try to keep this position, because right now it looks as if Chen has the pace over Badger to get that position. Second advantage Eric Violet has over Clint Vigas. So yeah, it's definitely going to be a very tough one for them to catch up to Eric Violet.
Now looks like Robert Hartley and Excite Racing, who's closing in on Clint Vigas now, but having a much better opportunity and is slowly but surely catching up to Chris Thorman as well. And Robert Hartley might have an opportunity in a few minutes to try to be able to overtake Chris Thorman and Coaxial Racing. So great run by Robert Hartley as of right now.
Yeah, very good run from Robert Hartley to there we go. I believe he's just gotten through on him, but yes, very good run for these guys. But these guys, I believe, were the winners of last round, so they are currently running in 4th. Robert Hartley, and yes, I can confirm, yes, they were the winners. No, they weren't. They were not the winners of last round, I'm sorry.
Gets around Thorman. Woo! You can hear the lockup there with Clint Vigas just struggling with trying to get that grip in the car, losing a little bit more time to Violet, as you can just hear the tires screaming.
Yeah, I think all these drivers right now are really struggling for grip. Everyone's just kind of trying different lines, looking for grip, seeing where they can gain an advantage, because right now on the lines of the running, it's a very difficult track to be on right now. As we look there with Aero Nam, your race leader, he's going to be overtaking a car in class. This is going to be this is not going to be a pass for position. This is going to be a lapped car of the number 32 Ricmotech Motorsports White, and they get by him really, really clean. It's a Team Street Survival now, and they're at about a 9.2 second advantage. They are absolutely gone in GTLM.
Just unbelievable run. Is right now Aeronam is the only driver running minute 17 lap times, and everyone else, everyone else from the GT Le Mans class is running 2:18 or slower. So very impressive drive for Aeronam, and his co-driver is going to be really happy with how big of a gap he has the opportunity to have.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be happy with the gap that Aero has given him, and I think that that's also going to kind of take some pressure off that team's shoulders and just kind of, okay, now we don't really have to push quite so hard to try and extend the gap because we've already got a gap.
Absolutely, and that'll give a good opportunity to give his co-driver, Aeronam's co-driver for Team Street Survival, a good way to just breathe and be able to just run the pace he wants to run, as he'll have potentially, by the time they come into pits, potentially at least even a 15-second gap at this rate, especially with how quick Aeronam is running.
Yeah, and that would be absolutely crucial. And like you said, Aeronam, the only one able to run in the 1 minute 17s, just about 0.4 of a second faster than Pascal Iannucci last lap. So I don't know what these guys have got going on, but whatever they've got and whatever they got figured out is definitely working for them.
Yeah, it's impressive. I mean, 10 seconds the gap now. It jumped up to 10 seconds for the gap, and it's just climbing and climbing. I don't know. I wish I could have their set, because man, it's working like a charm for them.
Yeah, definitely working on this low grip. Now, I will be interested to see if, as the track gets more grip in it, and there's more heat on the track, if that setup's going to start deteriorating and start going away on those guys. Because if they don't have the setup that can kind of work in any condition, then they could really start losing to Pascal Iannucci and that Cryptology Orange team.
Absolutely. It'll be interesting to see, because I'm right now impressed with how they're running this. Right now, looking at Pascal Iannucci getting around the slower traffic of Dean Chen, who's also in the GT Le Mans for Axon Driver Solution. Just an impressive run, though, for Iannucci, just doing everything he can. Does have a 13-second gap to Chris Thorman and Coaxial Racing, but shortly in the wing from Coaxial Racing, Hartley's still closing in. The gap has gone up a little bit, up to a 4.8-second gap, but Hartley's still logging in much quicker laps than Chris Thorman. So hopefully the pit strategies for Excite Energy might give them an opportunity to be able to get around Chris Thorman and try to at least see if they can catch up to Aeronam or even Pascal Iannucci.
Yeah, they're definitely going to have to try to work the pit stop strategy, as we always see these guys come out with some very interesting strategies, and they seem to always make them work. But I wonder if that's going to be the case in this race today, because it's hard to save fuel and tires in this race. Because the track is already so slick, you're already losing so much time to Aeronam or anybody really that's got the track figured out or the setup figured out, that some of these guys like Pascal Iannucci, they really can't afford to fuel save.
No, and if they try to fuel save now, especially for Team Street Survival with Aeronam, it could really play a disadvantage on them, and especially with the lap times that they're logging. Last lap, I'm looking at the last lap time, 1:17.6 for Aeronam. Pascal Iannucci's running 1:18.1s. There's one other driver that is running in 1:18s in GT Le Mans, and that is Robert Hartley. His last lap time was a 1:18.3. So that's a big difference there when you look at it from even just looking at Aeronam to Pascal Iannucci, and that's just 5/10 of a second there, and then even to Robert Hartley, and that's 7/10 of a second there as well. So that's a big difference especially at Mid Ohio.
Oh yeah, that's a huge difference. Mid Ohio, one of the tracks, it's a very short track, but it's also got a lot of corners and also a good amount of straights. It's kind of a track that's got everything, but it's very short. There's not a lot of time to make up spots, as there is Bobby Childs. It's just about 5 seconds behind Clint Vigas right now. He's kind of running all out on his own.
I want to say it looks like he might have made a pass a while back ago on Stephen Thomas, because I believe Stephen Thomas was ahead of Bobby Childs at one point. I'm not 100% sure, but it's kind of interesting as we're looking at a replay here to see what happened. As coming out of turn 1, ooh, okay, well that was where Clint Vikas had his, or actually no, where Stephen Thomas had his big moment. So that's
Still can't figure out exactly when that happened, but nonetheless, Bobby Childs is ahead of Stephen Thomas. Michael Key, another one of those drivers, now he's 1 lap down at this point, I believe, to even the other GTD cars, but that's a real shame for these guys. They've obviously haven't got something figured out, or they've got some sort of issue, like I was saying earlier, but real unfortunate for this team.
Yeah, as we're watching the onboard right now, I almost want to say they might have too long of a gear, as coming out of one of the tighter corners at Mid Ohio, and they were just very slow getting back on the throttle. So I wonder if it's just either the confidence level not there with the setup, or just not having the proper gearing where they can be able to really take the fight to the rest of the GTD class.
Yeah, right now it's looking to me like they just don't have enough confidence in that car. I think that just looks to me, even how slowly they are going around these corners, just looks like it's just very loose car to drive, very handful car to drive. I think that right now they're just not really able to keep the car really stable through any of the corners, so there's kind of just got to be really, really careful and almost just creep around all these corners.
Yeah, so this will be more than likely a good learning experience for Michael Key and Frito Sport Racing Team. Definitely can give them some notes for next time they're here, especially later on in the season, because I believe for the sports car series they have an opportunity for Ricmotech sports car series to race at Mid Ohio as well later on this season. So at least you can be able to take some opportunities and take some notes into the sports car series.
Yeah, I'm actually going on to check that right now, but I do believe you are correct. I do believe that we do come back here. They have the opportunity to run here in the sports car series. So yeah, just kind of take some setup notes, take some personal notes on driving, and how the track feels and how you need to almost drive the car with this lower grip. While it is not the same cars, it still is a big advantage to be had.
Absolutely. Right now, as we're watching David Alessi's struggling a little bit on lap times, as he's right now running, his previous lap time was a 120.7 and now is running a 119.5. So it seems like the tire fall off is really hurting some of these drivers on a lower level compared to Hartley and Aeronam. It just seems like the tire fall off is starting to become really big for these guys. For almost 45 minutes into the race now.
Yeah, almost 45 minutes into the race, and everyone's really, really spread out. The biggest gap right now is 3.3 seconds, or the smallest gap, I should say, is 3.3 seconds. So this is a very, very spread out field, and as much as I say you really can't fuel save, you know what I mean? A lot of these guys don't want to lose the time. They already have lost a good majority of time, so it almost would make more sense for some of these drivers to start fuel saving and really sacrificing now for the end of the race.
Absolutely. As I can guarantee you one thing, Robert Hartley and Excite Energy, I don't think they're fuel saving, as Hartley is pushing right now to catch up to Chris Thorman. That gap has dropped now to just roughly 3 seconds now, the gap. And it looks like it's closing even more as Hartley ran a 1:18.3 that last lap, while Chris Thorman and Coaxial Racing ran a 1:18.7. So that time is really starting to drop, and Hartley is starting to run a little bit quicker lap times than everyone else, and I should say more closer to getting to the point where he should be able to start running a lot quicker lap times than Aeronaut.
Yeah, I completely agree with that one. He's definitely not leaving anything on the table as we watch a replay here with Clint Vigas. See what happens here with Clint, and just too hot into the corner, pushes off the track, and that's going to cost him just a lot of time. So I think that team, we've been saying it all broadcast that a lot of these teams have been struggling with grip, but I think that just completely sums it up for you. Almost no one at this point can keep the cars on the track and keep them running on the track even at a very fast pace, apart from maybe Aeronam, who's now has a 14.1 or a 14.2 second advantage over Pascal Iannucci.
Absolutely, and Pascal Iannucci is up to a 14.7 gap over Chris Thorman. But it's going to be real interesting to see how this gap drops, as Hartley's last lap time was an 18.2, and Thorman has now dropped to a 1:19.1. So tire fall off is really coming into a play for Coaxial Racing, and they more than likely, if I was them, I'd start seeing about coming into the pits pretty soon.
Yeah, they're definitely falling off with those tires, and I think that these guys are all struggling with grip, and I think that those guys are more struggling than everyone else. That's what I was trying to say. As Rob Hartley, though, closes that gap now down to 1.9 seconds. So, yes, he is definitely not leaving anything on the table right now and really going for Chris Thorman.
I'm looking at it right now. He's got clear view in front of him, and you can see Chris Thorman not that far ahead of him. And he doesn't have to worry about any lap traffic yet, but they are catching up to Dean Chen, I believe, who's not that far ahead of him. Probably about roughly 10-second gap, I want to say, before they catch up to Dean Chen. So it'll be very interesting. As Hartley runs a little wide, but still getting that gap on Chris Thorman as it's down below 2 seconds now, the gap for Robert Hartley to Chris Thorman.
Yeah, just about now, Rob Hartley really starting to make some mistakes. Now 2.7 seconds the gap, so it almost seems to me like they've started to cook their tires off a little bit. They've started to push too hard. Now they're up to a 3.2 second gap now. So I think that they've just started to push a little bit too hard, kind of burn those tires off, and they've not really got a chance at him now.
Well, I could also probably looking at the approximate laps that have been completed. I have a feeling on that long straight that Chris Thorman might have taken an opportunity to get some draft help from Dean Chen and Raymond Bader, depending on how close they are. As we're looking now at Stephen Thomas, who's trying to catch back up, and only about a 3.7 second gap, as it looks like they just got around Michael Kiewer. Is that different? Let's see. That's actually Russ Ruddick trying to get around Stephen Thomas there, and Russ Ruddick's having a little bit of issues as Raymond Bader is closing in on Russ Ruddick, I believe.
I believe so as well, but there's also a...
Actually, sorry to jump in. I'm actually seeing the gap. It's actually that 0.5 of a second gap is actually Dean Chen catching up to Raymond Bader, not the other way around. So my apologies there, because Russ Ruddick is actually 36 seconds ahead of Raymond Bader and Dean Chen, who are fighting for 7th in GT Le Mans class.
Yeah, and this half a second gap is the closest gap of anyone on the track by far now. And I think that Chen is just going to start to kind of go at this point, try to make up a move, try to get some track position over Raymond Bader, and see if he can't have that track position going into the pits so that he knows that he is ahead of him and he doesn't have to try to jump him in the pits.
And that'll be a big factor as well, especially when it comes to pit stops. As right now we're about 50 minutes in, and you said it was going to be approximately as Chris Thorman comes into the pits now. And you did say that it was going to be about roughly 55 minutes before we start seeing cars potentially coming into the pits. And there's the first taker right there in coaxial racing of Chris Thorman.
Yeah, I think that Chris Thorman right now, I have a feeling that they're going to do the driver swap. I believe they actually have to do the driver swap in this one, as Raymond Bader way off the track, and that is Dean Chen up into 7th place. Here's a replay of it now. I think he just kind of noticed that he was going to go down the inside, tried to just make the outside work, and really just overcooked the corner, pushed it a little bit too hard.
Yeah, big mistake there by Raymond Bader, as Aero Nam is now in the pits as well, our leader in the GT Le Mans. So, already, okay, well, actually, oh, there we go, as we're back live now. As Aero Nam's in the pits, Pascal Iannucci is getting ready to come up to start his 39th lap, and Pascal Iannucci stays out. So Pascal Iannucci will now be your leader with Aero Nam in the pits.
Yeah, I think Pascal Iannucci right now is trying a little bit of a different strategy. He's got. I could see that that's why they were losing so much time, is that they were trying to extend the fuel as much as possible to maybe try to get the overcut on Aero Nam in that Team Street Survival car, and that could prove to be a lot for them. That could honestly close up a 15-second gap, but they can really time that to where they don't have to do a complete other pit stop to do a splash and go.
Yeah, and the question is too, is as we're seeing Robert Hartley getting around Raymond Bader there, it's going to be very interesting to see how this works out into effect, as well as Aero Nam. Depending on where Aero Nam came out, if he gets caught up in some lap traffic, that's going to give Cryptology Orin and an opportunity to stay ahead, to try to stay ahead of Aero Nam as well.
Yeah, it's definitely going to give them an opportunity to try to stay ahead of Aero Nam, which is crucial for them at this point with a 25-second gap, and Aero Nam's really not catching that gap a whole lot. He just was almost maintaining whenever we saw that gap, and now Russ Ruddock gets by your GTD car of, I believe that was Bobby Childs.
Yeah, Bobby Child.
Yep, and now he is chasing down Chris Thorman, trying to move up into the 5th spot. Just 0.4 of a second separating those two now. I think that the track now is starting to get a little bit more grip in it, because I'm starting to see drivers become just a little bit more confident in their cars.
Absolutely, and looking at the track temp as well, the track temp has gone up now. It's gone up by 3 degrees Celsius. Actually, it just went up another. It's at 33 degrees Celsius right now for you guys out in international. Looking at it for Fahrenheit wise, it is 91 degrees Fahrenheit. So the track temp has definitely gone.
Yeah, it's definitely gone up, and I think that's really helping some of these guys' setups. And I think that that's why we're seeing Aero Nam not catching him as much as you would think, because I think that those guys have really set up the car to be a loose car, or loose track, so they have a lot of grip in that car. And that could be the difference of why they're not catching like they were before. Because as you can see, there's a 3.5 second advantage he has. Robert Hartley has over him, and he's not really catching. He's honestly losing a little bit.
Yeah, and it looks like that gap is increasing as well for Pascal Iannucci, depending on when they come into the pits as well. As we're still riding with Chris Thorman, as he got around Clint Vigas there as well.
Yes, he gets by Clint Vigas, and that's going to be Russ Ruddock is going to try and just be looking everywhere, because it's just costing him time and time and time. He's now raised the gap up to a 1.5 second advantage, so he has lost nearly a second, near 1.1 seconds, getting stuck behind Clint Vigas.
And Russ Ruddock is probably not happy with this right now. As you can see Russ just getting closer and closer to Clint, trying to find the best opportunity. Boy, oh boy, that was...
Yeah, very close between those two. You can definitely see Russ Ruddock really starting to be like, all right, I need to get by now. He lost 2 complete seconds on that lap to Chris Thorman. So that is obviously a lot of time, and that's costing him what could be 5th place in this race. So that is, you can start seeing Russ now very close again, just really starting to show, hey, we need to get on it and just kind of just pull over, let me by, kind of get right up on him.
Yeah, as we're to see now, here we go. 95 of Russ Roddick is getting around Clint Vigas finally now, and Russ is probably giving a sigh of relief, but at the same time, he's more focusing on now having to figure out how to make up that gap on Chris Thorman after losing so much time.
Yes, and to try to figure out how to make it up all over again. This is pretty much back where he started whenever he was making his charge forward, so that's a very difficult thing for him as I'm still looking at the deal with Aero Nam. He's at 4 seconds right now, and he's not really catching, so he's running 18.7's last lap. He could either be fuel saving or that car is just not coming to him anymore.
I would not be surprised if the car is not coming to him, but at the same time, I would not be surprised if he's fuel saving as well, as we have hit the 56 minute mark. So seeing that Pascal Iannucci and Cryptology Orange and Robert Hartley for Excite Racing has not pitted yet, that is shocking.
Yeah, it's definitely shocking, and it also kind of throws up the question, well, was Aero Nam really pulling away because they were hardcore fuel saving?
It looks like right now Hartley might have made a mistake, as that gap did drop to 3 seconds, and actually I think I saw in the mirror, yep, as we see now, Robert Hartley was actually having a little bit of a struggle getting around Dean Chen. But it's going to really throw up a question, because Aero Nam and Chris Thorman both have gone in the pits and come out for Team Street Survival and Coaxial Racing. So waiting to see what the drivers from GT Lamar is still going to do, as we've seen right now GTD as Tyler Shiflett is taking over the May Motorsports right now, as he's getting ready to come out of the pits now. He's the first driver, team for GTD to enter the pits as well.
Yeah, first driver into the pits for GTD. And like you were saying, and there it is, Pascal Iannucci in the pit lane. So this is going to be the question. Will Aero Nam come out ahead of him? This is what I'm watching here on my timing screen, watching that gap to see if he's going to start catching to the point to where he could get by him. I'm also looking through the rule book to see on the if they have a thing for minimum drive share. I don't know if they've got something. There we go. I'm just kind of looking through now, trying to see if they can what is the way that they can split up the drive.
Absolutely. And also Robert Hartley and Iannucci for Cryptology Orange, both jumping into the pits and both doing driver swaps as well, as Mike Dam is now in the driver's seat now for Cryptology Orange, and Travis Schwenke in the Excite Energy Racing car now. So going to be very interesting to see how this plays out, as we are just about at the hour mark. We're right now at 59 minutes elapsed. So a lot of things can happen here, as we see David Alessi still staying out and Chris Thorman going by now, who has stayed in the car after completing one stint already.
Yeah, he's still staying in the car, and that's Mike Dam out of the pits for that Cryptology Orange car. And right now, Aero Nam with a 30-second advantage over David Alessi, but obviously Alessi, Thorman, and I believe Ruddock haven't pit yet, so it will be Mike Dam and Travis Schwenke in that Excite Energy Racing car that I believe will take over position 2 and 3, but this is an interesting deal here because Aero Nam is obviously staying in for a second stint. So they are going to have to do a driver swap at the end, because I just read the rulebook. They have to do the normal iRacing fair drive share feature. So they have to do 25% of an equal share. So that means that Aero Nam is going to have to give up that seat a little bit earlier than I think he would want to.
Yeah, and I honestly would not be surprised if this is more of a short stint, as now we're seeing David Alessi in the pits as well, as well as Chase Bonzer from Proximity Racing also in the pits. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out, as with Aero Nam still in the car, he's going to be pushing this car to the limit, trying to gain as much time as he can on Chris Thorman and Russ Ruddock and a few of the other drivers that stayed in and did the driver swap.
Yeah, so he's definitely going to try to gain as much time as possible. I completely agree with you on that one. I think he's just going to try and do a short stint, get as much time away from them as possible, and just kind of give away the car whenever he can do a short stint to the end, and they've got maybe even a 30-second advantage, which at that point is going to be near ungive-upable.
Exactly, and looking at it now with the GTD class right now, with Stephen Thomas came in the pits and came out now, and he stayed in the car for Drift Lane Racing. Tyler Schifflin had looked like he had an issue as well, and he's already been lapped by Eric Violet. But however, Eric Violet and Bobby Childs, both for DTD Motorsports, hanging really well right now, and Eric Violet's got a 6.5 second gap over his teammate Bobby Childs. So very interesting to see their strategy as well for the GTD class.
Yeah, definitely going to be a different strategy, I think, between the GTDs and the GTLMs. Obviously, the GTLMs, I believe, can go a little bit longer than the GTDs, or maybe that's vice versa. But, yeah, so Kevin Ford into the pits. So, yes, he's in the pits now. And
I believe that is a driver change as well from Eric Bader, from Raymond Bader, who was in the car previously. So that's another driver swap there. So very interesting to see a lot of the teams already doing a driver swap. So it'll be very interesting to see if a good example for Excite Energy Racing and to see what Excite Energy Racing and Cryptology Orange do, seeing the potential of them switching over to their faster drivers when it comes to that second and final pit stop for them. At the same time, I almost want to say that probably won't happen, but it's going to be very, very curious to see how big of a difference it's going to make when Aero Nam finally comes into the pits for his second pit stop.
Yeah, definitely going to be a little bit of an interesting one. So we're looking there at Mike Dam, that's in that Cryptology Orange car, and I'm interested to see the strategy between the DTD Motorsports cars, both the blue and the gold car. They're currently running 1-2 in the GTD class. I'm kind of interested to see the strategy that those guys pull out and see if they're going to try and almost play team orders a little bit, and kind of try to do the same strategy and kind of try to defend other people from each other.
I would not be surprised if they do that, because Bobby Childs did get passed by Tyler Schifflin from May Motorsports, and that's one of their rivals right now, as well as Stephen Thomas, who is trying to catch up to him. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out, because they are gaining, right now looking at Eric Violet's lap times, and it looks like he is still gaining and pulling away from Tyler Schifflin. I mean, not Tyler Schifflin, from Stephen Thomas. So it does make a really interesting one to see what happens.
Yeah, definitely going to be an interesting one there. But Dylan Alt is also kind of losing some time there to Stephen Thomas, who's actually in a different class. So sorry about that one. Got those classes messed up just a little bit there. Kevin Ford and is really close to the back of Stephen Thomas. Again, different classes there, I believe. So as we look here at a replay, so very close between Tyler Schifflin and I believe that was the number 9 car of Eric Violet. So I believe that was for position, possibly. My live timing screen's not really working too well for me right now to tell me this information, but I don't know if you can add on that. So Kevin Ford also very close, and they make contact there. So heavy contact between Kevin Ford and Stephen Thomas in that Driftline racing car. So those two are going to pretty much be out of it at this point. So watching Stephen Thomas from the Driftline racing car actually now on board with Kevin Ford in the Ricmotech Motorsports white car. He tries to pull over, and yep, they kind of just, one of them Kevin Ford went to the inside, and Stephen Thomas tried to go, actually vice versa. Kevin Ford tried to go the outside, Stephen Thomas to the inside, and they met in the middle. And that was a big incident for both of those drivers. So that is going to be Stephen Thomas pretty much out of it at this point, having to tow back to the pits. So they still have just about an hour and 9 minutes remaining for them to be able to do that. But now, as you see here, Aeronom with a 43-second advantage over Chris Thorman in that Team Street Survival car. So Aeronom absolutely killing it this point. Team Street Survival definitely has got the setup figured out, but the strategy is definitely an interesting one because he still hasn't done a driver swap where a lot of these teams have. They've already done their driver swap and they've got it over with at this point, so they don't need to come back in and do it again. So you can see Aeronom just pushing that car, pretty much giving it everything that he's able to give it, so that it can do, so that they can actually get in and get out and not lose that time to Chris Thorman in the pit stops. We know Aeronom's a very, very fast driver. He's almost undefeated this season in the Ricmotech series. Only lost one race, that was last round at Laguna Seca just last week. So Aeronom, I believe, the faster of the two of these drivers, as he is doing the majority of the time in that car. And he's just absolutely pulling away from everyone as Whitworth is into the pit lane now. I believe this is a routine stop, and Stephen Thomas still in the pit lane, so I believe he is going to be out of this race. So Brandon Whitworth actually getting into that number 9 D2D Motorsports blue car. So we're looking here at Mike Moonigan, currently in 5th place in the Bulgian racing car. So they are just kind of all out on their own at this point. I believe that's 51 seconds to the driver ahead of them, so nothing really that they can do to catch them at this point. I believe they're just going to be kind of running laps trying to defend from Russ Ruddock behind. And here's something. There's Arthur Chan. So he goes down the hill. Going to try to watch and see what happens here. Goes up and into the grass as he gets over to the top of the hill, as we are back live and watching here with Arthur Chan. Back with Mike Moonigan as he goes down the backstretch now into one of the hardest braking points on the entire track right now. And basically right now just going to be trying to keep ahead of Russ Ruddock in that Flying Tortoise Motorsports car. So Russ Ruddock trying to move up more spots and try to claim that 5th spot, I should say, over Mike Moonigan. He's also got to deal with, I believe that is, trying to get a good look at the number there behind him. He's also got to, but the gap right now at 3.7 seconds is Mike Dam, 3rd overall, is coming around to get around Michael Ruddock in this race, trying to get back around him and lap him here. And just the difference in Thorman versus Dam, I'm sorry. Mike Dam right now catching him down to just 2.5 seconds, and it's starting to close up just a little bit. As I say, that gap starts to extend just a little bit, but these guys really starting to maintain the gap, but it's also, as you can see on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, it was a 6.7 second gap on lap 49. It's down to a 2.5 second gap on lap 52. So just in the span of 3 laps, they closed down just about 4 seconds. So I do think that they've got an opportunity here if they can get around Michael Ruddock in that flying towards Motorsports Machine. So as they head down the hill yet, and just there, 2.2 seconds the gap, even with getting held up here. And there we go. Michael Ruddick gives the position to Mike Dam and just lets him go. He knows that he's faster, just lets him go there and knows that he is fighting for position. Now down to a 2-second gap now. So these drivers really going to start, I think you're going to start seeing Mike Dam really start pushing that car just a little bit more as Dylan Alt, one of the drivers in that proximity racing car, they are down 3 spots from their starting position. They did start P5, now down to P8, and they're just 1.7 seconds back from Arthur Chan, just going to try to get that car up one more spot. As you can see, he's all over the place at the top of the hill, just trying everything that he possibly can, but I believe these guys are pretty evenly matched on pace. His last lap, he did go fastest, though, with his fastest lap in the race. So he is right now really pushing to try to catch up to Arthur Chan and try to make the best of what the situation that they've got right now. As you can see right now, Aeronam with a 47-second advantage over Chris Thorman, and that is pretty much going to be enough to do another pit stop, I believe, and still be able to come out, or at least do the driver swap and be able to come out, as there is Dylan Alt getting, no, here's Brandon Whitworth, Tyler Shiflett, as he gets by, I believe that was Brandon Whitworth, so he gets by him as Whitworth comes into the pit lane. I don't know what Whitworth came into the pit lane for, if that was just a routine stop for him in that number 9 DTD Motorsports machine. Mike Dam in that number 83 Porsche 911 RSR, just 0.7 of a second down from Chris Thorman. So right now, Aeronam has already got a 48-second advantage. These guys cannot afford to start battling, so I think these guys are just going to try to figure it out really, really quickly. And if Dam is faster, I think that Thorman, it'd be the smartest decision just to kind of let him by and let him get some gap too, so that he doesn't have to just sit here and battle with him, although he may also try to battle with him because he knows that he cannot catch Aeronam at this point, because Aeronam is just in a league of his own at this point in this race. He's absolutely gone. As we give a top 3 rundown in each one of your classes, Aeronam TLM class over Chris Thorman and Mike Dam. Over in the GTD class, Bobby Childs is leading over Tyler Shiflett and Brandon Whitworth. So that's your top 3 in both of those classes there. And just now 0.2 of a second, now 0.3 of a second, very close with these two here, and they got a little bit of lap traffic ahead of them in the form of Michael Moonigan. So that could easily play a factor in this result here. And the difference between these cars is it's also going to be very, very hard for Mike Dan to make a move down the straightaway unless he's got a really good draft, because that Ferrari has got really good straight line speed and not so much off the corner. Well, that's where the Porsche is very strong, is off the corner, but it lacks that straight line speed. But here at Mid-Ohio, the Porsche definitely should be the better of the two cars, in my opinion, because it can come off the corner, and there's quite a bit of corners here at Mid-Ohio, as Mike Dam looking everywhere around Chris Thorman. Thorman does not want to give up this move yet. He is prepared, what it looks like, to fight for this move and not try to lose second place in the race, because like I've been saying pretty much all night now, track position is everything in this race.
It is indeed. Hello Tyler, I was just going to come in because Tyler Vickery just had to step away for a few minutes. Just thought I'd come and give you a hand a little bit there.
Yeah, thanks. So
waiting. You were on such a roll. I was just waiting for a little way into the conversation. But Mike Dam, he's closed him down, hasn't he? Last few laps, you can actually see if I can move the fingers as fast as I can move my mouth. There you go. He's gone down from 2.1 seconds down to the gap that you see, which is just a couple of tenths. And Dam with a good slipstream now, down the longest part of the longest straight on the circuit. He's going up the inside. There's no resistance from Tormund. Can he brake late enough, Mike Dam? He can indeed, and he's through. Good move.
Yeah,
there.
so up into second place.
Decisive move, Tyler. That was important because he couldn't allow, with the nature of this middle sector here at Mid-Ohio, he could not allow Tormund to stick around the outside of it.
No, he couldn't at all, and this is crucial for him because this is going to give him a chance to eat in to that gap that Aero Nam has right now. While it is definitely not catchable unless Aero has a catastrophic mistake, to catch a 49-second gap, almost near impossible, it is able to kind of eat into that gap a little bit, maybe even gain a little bit of time on Aero Nam and not let him get such an advantage. But right now, I believe he could actually come into the pits, do a driver swap with no fuel or tires, and get out and still have the lead. So that is crucial. But Mike Dam now just absolutely leaving Chris Thorman behind.
Well, if anybody can do it, if anybody can put any pressure on, it is Mike Dam. Although the lead is growing, it's not actually getting any smaller, even though Mike Dam has been through for nearly a lap. Didn't manage to gain any time on Aero Nam. It will take a mistake by the Estonian, I think, but at the same time, I think Mike Dam will be very happy with second place if he can keep it to the end. Dylan Alt, is he? Where's he? There he is. He's just behind Arthur Chan in the Axon Racing, and Dylan Alt in the Proximity Racing car. Personal best indeed, Tyler, last time by for Dylan Alt.
Yeah, personal best for him. And I think that this is when that car is starting to come alive a little bit here in... Now he's down to 6 tenths of a second in the draft here. And this is one of the longest straights on the entire track. In these cars, as much as you have to set them up here to go through the corners very fast, you also got to set them up to go through the down the straights. And as you can see, Dylan Alt obviously has a very good setup through the corners as he closes up absolutely massively here to Arthur Chan, and gonna start putting some pressure on him and try to move up another spot. But yeah, like we were saying, Aero Nam, about a second Mike Dam has cut out of Aero Nam's lead, but still, Aero Nam is in a league of his own right now. Nobody has had the pace that he has had, but there is a mistake there from Dylan Alt, and that is going to cost him.
Really, wasn't it? Middle of the fast left hand there. Car just pushing out to the outside, very nearly onto the grass. He didn't. If he'd have been on the grass there, he wouldn't have been able to get back very easily. As through turn one they go, and Chan now giving it everything to stay ahead.
Yeah, Chan is absolutely giving it everything he's got to try to stay ahead of Alt right now. I think that he knows that Dylan Alt is faster, but he's got to just try to stay ahead of him as much as possible so that he has the track position, because this track is a track where the middle sector is a very long part of the track, and also a part of the track that is very difficult to work with, as Chris Thorman goes into the pits now. So I believe they are going to try to get a little bit of an undercut possibly, in that, like we were saying, doing a short stint right in the middle of the race, and trying just to do the driver, or well, in their case, they don't have to do the driver swap, but do a longer stint towards the end.
Yeah, strategy is always interested in these longer races, 2 hours and 15 minutes, and that's a much better line by Dylan Alt. There's some traffic just in front of them. It could be just having a look on the. Oh, well, that's quite.
It's the GTD of Brendan Wentworth of the D2D Motorsports car.
Oh yeah, second in class for Whitworth, and here goes Chan doing the lapping, and Dylan Alt trying to follow him through in close order. I do like the livery on the 12 car, actually. It looks very, very striking indeed. And he's now pursuing. He just can't seem to get off the hairpin well enough to get within that quarter of a second, which Mike Dam was able to do with Chris Torman.
Yeah, I think he's just struggling with a little bit of gear. It sounds to me like the gear is a little bit long as I get very close. Indeed, Dylan Alt really, I think, starting to show, okay, I need to get by now. I think he's starting to realize that this is when Arthur Chan is starting to hold him up, so he's just starting to be a little bit more aggressive through the middle sector.
That's nice.
So this is also
a good run over the crest.
Yeah, he's got a good run, but this is also one of the trickiest spots on the track. If he overcooks it, it's a very difficult corner to get right. It's a very easy corner to push out and push understeer into the grass, which can be catastrophic. And then this corner right here sets you up for pretty much all the way down until the hairpin getting onto the back straightaway. So as you can see,
that right-hander seems to go on forever, and you have to stay closer to the inside, because if you go wide, then it compromises you through that last little left kink onto the straight, and that's what Dylan Alt was very careful not to do. Through the long right-hand hairpin then, he's a little bit closer. I fear still not quite close enough though, Tyler.
No, he's definitely not close enough, but he is in the draft of Arthur Chan. And that Ford, in my opinion here, has a little bit more of a top speed advantage. The Ford in general just has a little bit of a top speed advantage over the, very close again. As there's also another battle that is really close on the track. That's Russ Ruddock and Mike Moonigan. And Chan has run wide. This is going to give Dylan Alt a very good opportunity to go down the inside here, but he's not going to be able to do it. Chan blocks that beautifully. Is going to just shut the door, tell Dylan Alt, you are not going in there. And Dylan Alt, there's just no room. Mid-Ohio, such a tight track anyway to make moves on. If Dylan Alt's going to have any chance of a move, he almost has to do it down a straightaway. And right now, that is just not going to happen because he is not quicker than Chan out of the final hairpin going on to the back straightaway.
Didn't really help him either. He locked up quite badly into the penultimate corner there. Very difficult for him to get the traction that he needed, although he's a little bit closer. If you can have a clean run through turn 2 here, yeah, and you see Chan just has a better line through there. I think it seems Tyler, he seems to be more consistent, and that's what's helping him, because he's getting the corner right just before the longest straight on the track. We will go to the battle that you were mentioning, Mike Monaghan then in car number 69 ahead of car 95. That's Michael Ruddock, who's taken over from Russ Ruddock, but now it's only 0.4 of a second.
Yeah, still very close for the 5th spot here. Again, this is, I believe, only the 2nd round of the series, so at this point the championships are still up to play for. So these drivers are going to start, I think, having to really start getting on with it. And actually, this is round 4. I'm sorry, I'm completely thrown off working these two different series here. But as Michael Moonigan tries it round the outside, that's not going to work. Ruddock closes the door, and he's just going to continue to block for him. But I think we've seen a lot of really close racing, and this is definitely more of it.
Yeah, and you can see the different lines in play as well, whether intentional or not, as that is Bobby Childs. And I can hear him having an issue. Didn't quite see it. We'll get it on the screen now for you. Childs then, well, it's not going to be a good camera angle. It's this tricky double right-hander here. Oh, he just got a wheel on the grass just as he turned into the second part. Going off, fortunately for the battle that we were watching. Didn't interfere with it.
Yeah, definitely good for those drivers. This is now up to about a 0.6 of a second advantage. So Ruddock is starting to pull away just a little bit now, but Moonigan is, I think, going to start to try to catch up to Ruddock and see if he can't claim that 5th spot. Going in now, we're just about an hour and 25 minutes into this 2-hour and 15-minute race, so just over halfway now at this point, and these two battles on the track are amazing.
Yeah, really strong battling in the middle of this race in the Ricmotech World Challenge. It is sponsored by Ricmotech High Performance Sim Racing Equipment. And I do apologise as well, I do have to say, there was an issue with the adverts that we played earlier on. This is why we haven't done any more advert breaks, because there is a bit of an issue with the files on my side here, so just can't play the videos, unfortunately. So do apologise to the sponsors on that one, but yeah, we will have that back for next time.
Yeah, so now a 1.3 second advantage. Is starting to extend his lead. I think Moonigan is just starting to kind of calm down a little bit, maybe trying to save a little bit of fuel and just not push as hard as he was, because I think he realized that Ruddock is just going to defend that position to the end. So there's really no sense in trying to defend that position from him. As we can look back at that battle with Arthur Chan and Dylan Alt, that's back down to a 0.2 of a second gap, so that gap is back to being very close indeed. But right now Ruddock with about 1 second the advantage over Moonigan, so he's just extending that gap right now. I'm just seeing it shoot up at this point.
By the way, it is also sponsored, the Ricmotech World Challenge is also brought to you by Proforma Elite Texas Graphics, who are also been very helpful with this season's competition. So yeah, we're very thankful for them to be involved as well. Arthur Chan, Dylan Alt still going at it, 7p8. Alt just seems to have lost some of the sharpness of a lap or two ago anyway, it seems, Tyler. Don't know if he's struggling slightly with the tyres or maybe with the track conditions out there, because he just wasn't quite. And just as I say that, of course, he's getting half a second in about 3 corners and he's right back with him.
Yeah, a little bit of commentator's curse there, but yeah, Arthur Chan
like
really.
Commentator's curse. That's the kind of commentator's curse that you want.
Yeah, definitely. A little bit of reverse commentator's curse there. A little bit of commentator's curse for Arthur Chan, but now it's back to a 0.4 of a second advantage for him. He is starting to lose a little bit of time. I think that Alt is really got the setup on him right now. I think that Chan is just starting to struggle more and more and more, and I think he's just trying to hold on to this position with pretty much everything that he's got, but still, he does have the advantage on Alt coming out of that final hairpin heading down the back straightaway, so that is just helping him an insane amount. But Alt is in the slipstream though, and he's just not going to be close enough going into the 90-degree right-hander.
Yeah, tricky section this. It looks like Arthur Chan is struggling a little bit in some of the slow corners, but I think what it is he's just using the different characteristics of the Ford GT. He's just using the car differently, because, like I said, it does have obviously different properties to that of the Ferrari, and I think that's what he's doing. He's making that car work for him.
Yeah, I cannot agree more on that one. I think that he's really, right now, he's using that car to its full extent, and everywhere that it's good at, but then everywhere that it's slow, he's just kind of letting it get covered up by the fact that it's really good through some of the sections. So that's just really helping him to stay ahead of Alt.
Yeah, but how long can he stay ahead of him for? I feel like as long as he keeps just doing what he's doing here at turn 2, I feel like that's going to be enough, because look at that exit he got. Just getting great traction, great amount of grip. And yeah, it's really serving him well, because he's not in any danger whatsoever. Down that back straight, sorry.
No, not in any danger whatsoever, but you can see as soon as they get to this kind of technical part, Alt starts to close up, because I say that Chan extends the lead is a gap just a little bit more. But he's really, right now, I think that these guys are pretty evenly matched on pace. That's why no one's just really leaving the other one. Oh, that's a big mistake there from Alt, and that is going to give Chan a very nice bubble of space. So we get a replay of it here. So he comes up over the crest, and I think he's going to make the same mistake. No, he didn't. He gets up on the exit curb. Yep. Up over the exit curb and a little bit onto the arm cut. So Doesn't look like he's got any bent steering or anything like that. Maybe just a little bit of cosmetic damage, but that still is going to hurt him because now he's got a 3-second gap to try to close back up now.
So it looked to me that a couple of corners before that, car was looking very twitchy. I wonder if he'd slightly cooked the tyres somehow, because he just looked like every single corner he was going in, it just looked like he had no rear grip. The car was very, very bitey. So I wonder if that was it was just a symptom of pushing hard for all those laps. You know, it can happen with this this tyre model.
Yeah, it definitely can happen with this tire model, and I'd be interested to see. I'm going to try to find out where the track temperature is now, because I would be interested to see if the track is now getting hotter, which is then causing it to heat up and get these tires slicker faster.
Yeah, I mean, it is bright sunlight out here, so I would not rule it out. It says Mike Monaghan's crashed. Let's see what's happened here then. To Mike Monaghan, Welligan Racing. It's coming through turn 1. Fast corner this, and losing the rear again. And that's very similar to what happened we saw with a few drivers earlier on, with Thomas most notably when he made that amazing save. Yeah, just struggling a bit, and then a few seconds later, oh no, this is the same. Yeah, that's the same incident. So it registered as 2 incidents there for Monaghan. But he's kind of all right though, Tyler. He's not in any danger of losing any positions. He's still 25 seconds ahead of Arthur Chan.
Yeah, he's not really any sort of danger, but that also could be very alarming for that team, knowing that they've got a car that can be a little bit hard to handle, as there is also your overall GTLM leader, Aero Nam, who has absolutely left the rest of this field here tonight. 47 seconds the gap over Mike Dam, and Mike Dam has a 25-second gap over Travis Swinky right now. So the top 3, and actually the top 4 and really top 5 are really spread out in this race, as it is through the entire field.
Yeah, it's been like that, hasn't it, earlier on? I think just Aero Nom, just the quality of the man really out in front. He was always going to be difficult to beat once he took the lead earlier on with no incidents. And so,
Yeah.
It's just the history of him in this championship and in other things that he races. Once he gets in front, it's very tough to beat him.
Yeah, definitely very tough to beat him.
You can see he's right
anywhere.
There, some traffic right in his face.
Yeah, a little bit of traffic there in the form of Bobby Childs in a D2D Motorsports Gold car. But yeah, at this point, he really doesn't have anything to even worry about, though. He's pretty much, at this point, leading by over half the track. And if he loses a second now, what does he care? He's got 46 seconds over Mike Dam, so I think that's just why we're just seeing him be very, very patient. And yes, Aero Nam, pretty much I think that this guy could drive anything that you put him in. He is he's actually almost went perfect so far in the Ricmotech Sports Car Championship, and now leading by 45 seconds. This just shows how good of a driver he really is.
Yeah, and I feel like with Nom, he's one of those drivers who goes under the radar a lot in terms of the big picture on iRacing. You know, as far as I'm aware, I mean, he's not a world championship driver. He doesn't have a big name in terms of, say, the broadcasted community. He's not in any of these big series for money or anything. But I tell you what, if he put his hand to one of those, I reckon he could certainly be successful. He's got nearly a 7,000 I rating, and that, as we know, Tyler, is extremely high and extremely useful in terms of those big strength of field races.
Yeah, definitely very, very useful. And I think, to be honest with you, I completely agree with you. If he went in and tried to do one of those big money races, he really could jump in and win. And you're completely right, though. He's not one of those drivers that has a huge, huge name in the community that everybody really knows. You kind of have to know what he does to know of him. He's not one of those guys that kind of puts his name out there all over the place.
It reminds me of, like, I know this sounds this might sound like a little bit of a harsh analogy, but someone like a kicker in American football, like they're very rich, they're very sort of successful, they're very talented in what they do. But if you ask the average person on the street, well, who's that guy? They might not know. And I feel like that's Aero Nom. He's one of the best drivers I've seen over 8 years of iRacing broadcasting, in terms of his consistency, his relentless speed. Reminds me a bit of Fernando Alonso in terms of the way that he constructs his races. Yeah, he's just very good.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, I completely agree with you, though. That is as harsh of an analogy as it may sound, that is really a good analogy. He's not a guy whose his name is everywhere. He even tries to put his name everywhere. He's just one of those guys that's just kind of cool, calm, and collected. Doesn't really make a big scene whenever he joins anything or anything like that. Isn't in one of those big, huge series like you were saying. And just does this kind of stuff for fun and things like that. But he's one of the best drivers that there is.
You see, I think that with him, and having watched him in these World Challenge races especially, the longer the race seems to be, the better Aero Nom does. So I think if he were to enter into the VRS GT series or something similar, I'll be honest, I don't know if he would have the outright pace to be at the front of the race in terms of that, but certainly over the race distance, he makes very few mistakes, and he really doesn't. I mean, look at his car; it's spotless. You know, there's no knocks on it. There's no dents. He's not been off the road, I don't think, at all. And this takes nothing away from his opposition as well. Mike Dam and Travis Fenke, especially in pursuit, are excellent drivers.
Yeah, absolutely amazing drivers that are in pursuit of him. And that just also goes to show you how good of a driver he really is. Mike Dam, one of the drivers from the Sports Car Championship, one of the best over in the Sports Car Championship. Again, Travis Swinke, one of the best over in the Sports Car Championship. David Payton, also a very good driver in the Sports Car Championship. You just see all these really, really, really good drivers that are in pursuit of him, but he isn't even fazed by it. Just absolutely killing it.
Yeah, to me, like back to the analogy of the longer races, you know, these guys have really competitive battles in the sports car series, because by the nature of them, they're being much shorter races, they're more competitive, but also they don't have the driver changes, so they're all in it from the start. Mike Dam has done a good job since he's come into the car. I mean, he's taken off about 5 seconds from the lead of Nom. As Dylan Olt's off, I think.
Yeah, I believe you're right there.
Seconds, so we'll have to see what's happened to him here. Coming into turn 1, throws it in. Is it the same problem as earlier? Yeah, look how he's having to soar. He's having to soar at the wheel, Tyler. He's really struggling for grip.
Yeah, really struggling for grip there. Really unfortunate for him. So that is,
I mean, he turned in and he had nothing on the rear, did he, at all?
No, absolutely nothing. So that is really unfortunate for him here. As
big lock up there by David Payton, is it? I think.
Yeah, I believe you're correct on that one. David Payton. Yeah, that was a big lockup from Payton. And that is Aero Nom into the pit lane.
Okay. Well, second stop
Aero
of
Nom.
the day. He's the first one. Well, Nathan Thomas is in as well, but I believe that's the crashed car, isn't it, of he and Stephen Thomas. But yeah, Aero Nom handing over to Jennifer McDonald with 45 seconds of a lead, and 35 minutes to go. So we'll see if she can bring it home and take maximum points. But look at that, the pit stop's completed for McDonald, Tyler, and she's only just out behind Mike Dam. What's that? Wait a minute.
Yeah, I think. Oh, they got a problem. The pit limiter's stuck on. So that is catastrophic for that team. Team Street Survival They have a pit limiter issue. The pit limiter is stuck on that car, and that is, oh man, they have just
I have
pretty
seen
much
this before, and I believe, don't quote me on this because I'm not 100% certain, but I believe it's got something to do with the driver swaps, that sometimes it can. I believe it can stick the limiter on if it's been put on before. Is that right?
Yeah, the limiter does stay on. I'm actually quite familiar with endurance racing. I do it quite often. Yes, the limiter stays on between driver swaps, but the thing about it is that I have had the issue where if you jump in the car, sometimes the pit limiter button that you have assigned will actually disengage. It will deassign the button. You have to go to a keyboard toggle switch. There's a toggle on your keyboard. Some people, though, have that button overridden with something else. And I believe that this is the case here. But Jennifer McDonald, though, is going to pretty much at this point, I believe, is going to lose the lead to Mike Dam. And that's devastating for that team. Team Street Survival, after literally dominating the race, is now...
I will say that it is... Oh, yeah, it's gone out to over a minute now. That's how much she's lost on this lap with that issue. And again, we have to point out that is not the fault of the driver. That is just something that happens. I've seen it in one of the very first endurance races I called on iRacing, where Rusty Laidley, I believe it was, came out of the pit lane, and at Spa of all places, Tyler, by the way, it took him about 4.5 minutes to get round.
Yeah,
it's just a hopeless situation because, like I say, as a driver, there's nothing you can do. It's not your mistake. The team are going to be devastated. Jennifer is going to be devastated. It's not anything that she could do.
No, and it's just a terrible feeling whenever it is a equipment error, and it's not an error that you can even fix. There's nothing that you can even do about it. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible feeling to have, knowing that you can't get in or you can't get out of that situation, and it's nothing to the fault of your own. And like you had said earlier at Spa, I've actually seen it happen at Le Mans, of all places, where I believe the team was actually forced to retire because they were hit on the lap. They were going so slow.
So Aeronom's getting back in. And now they're doing the driver change again. And now is that... And don't speed on exit. There we go. Is the limiter off? The limiter is off. So McDonald back in. And now, to be fair, there's still a lot that can be gained from this. She's still within striking distance of a podium finish here, because Michael Ruddock, who's in third place at the moment, is 48 seconds ahead without that last stop being made. So it's still all to play for McDonald and for Street Survival.
Yeah, definitely still something to play for, but that is just absolutely devastating. After literally leading the entire race from 1.5 40-second gap, that is a terrible way to lose it, and no fault of your own, not even a fault of equipment, just due to a fault of iRacing. To lose out on a win in such incredible fashion is definitely heartbreaking for that team. But yeah, so she's going to really have a task on her hands, as we're watching here at Tyler Shiflett in I believe that's in the lead of the GTD class.
So yeah, Tyler Shiflett, just been going about his business really since going into that car, and he's just been nice and solid as Shiflett throughout, and leads by 12.3 seconds over Brandon Whitworth. And it's interesting because I've watched Clint Vigus racing in the sports car series for a few years now, 2 or 3 years, and he's always been a really consistent driver. Today's probably the worst race I think I've ever seen Clint Vigus do, and he still might end up winning it with Tyler Shiflett.
Yeah, and that's That's pretty incredible. Whenever you do have a good relationship or a good understanding of the two drivers, that one can make up for the other one in places whenever they're lacking. Maybe you carry him a little bit in one race and he carries you a little bit in another one. That's something that you really need with your teammates, and it's something that's very hard to come by. Is Aero Nom's actually in our waiting room here, so I'm going to try to move him in here and see if we can get a little bit of insight on what happened with that incident. So Aero Nom in the booth now. So Aero, what happened?
Well, I went to pit and used the pit limiter like always, and yeah, Jennifer didn't have the key under his, I don't know. He didn't have the speed limiter key mapped. She never used it.
Very unfortunate with you guys. You guys had an absolutely commanding lead, 44 seconds for you guys. That was really, really impressive. You did an absolutely amazing job in the car. It's an awful way to lose it, I know. I've seen it happen before, and I know it won't be the last time. It's always a heartbreaking feeling to know that wasn't even any fault of your own. It was a fault of equipment or something else. But yeah.
Yeah, there was definitely chance to win. I think the gap was maybe 35 seconds after the pits, so yeah, that was really, really hard. I didn't change tires, so my pace was almost on par with Mike. I think he had new tires.
Yeah, it was very impressive. You did an absolutely amazing job. As Travis Swinky's into the pit lane here, so
it's still definitely a chance for third place still, though, I think. I mean, it's sorry, not, or maybe third, fourth, maybe, because there are still some drivers who haven't made the pit stops yet, and still within that 40-50 seconds of fourth. So, do you think it can be done?
Let's see. We have old tires, so that's not helping. I think it will be really tough.
Yeah, well, best of luck.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you're okay.
All right, well, best of luck to you, Aero. Very heartbreaking thing to see. We'll talk to you a little bit later.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right, well, that was Aero Nom in the booth here with us, and that is just heartbreaking for that team, having a 44-second advantage now, and Mike Dam is into the pit lane as well. So Travis Swinky was in last lap, Mike Dam in this lap. And Swinky has still come out second, I believe, as we're still watching Tyler Shiflett. Yes. So we're going to watch Travis Swinky here, see where he comes. If you look on the map there, you can see the number 1 car.
Just those two drivers up. There you go.
There we go, and Mike Dam is out of the pit lane, so that is a 53-second advantage they now have. So the advantage has turned now. It was in the form of the Team Street Survival team. Now is in the form of the Cryptology Orange team. They now lead by 50 seconds.
So it was only a 36-second pit lane time for Cryptology Orange, and then it was also only 34 seconds for Excite Energy Racing. So because they didn't have to change the driver, that's a big advantage. But I tell you what, Aero was spot on where it would have been pretty close, I reckon. But look, now this is Frankie going to put a lap on Jennifer McDonald. Like I said, that is the car that about 10 minutes ago was leading the race by 45 seconds, Tyler. And I tell you what, it's heartbreaking for them. But things happen in racing. That is what, it's one of the reasons why we do it. It's unpredictable. You don't want it to be on the receiving end of it, but certainly, things like that are never dull. It makes our job interesting. And I remember, there's a few occasions where, for instance, Mike Dam has had internet issues while leading races and things like that in the past, and it's awful to watch for the drivers, but it's entertaining for the fans, I guess, sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. And if anyone knows about that, that is definitely me. I'm obviously race in real life, and
sorry, Tyler, to interrupt you, but Arthur Chan's been off the course here in the final sector. He just understeered off.
Overcooked it. It's a little bit too hard. A very tricky corner to get right, and cost him a lot of time.
Yeah, Dylan Holt's going to be ruining those mistakes, isn't he? When he sees that Arthur Chan's gone off and lost about what must be 3 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, so big time loss for him. But back to what I was saying about unlucky, and I'm the one who knows all too much about it. I have had many incidents in the past in real life as Rush Reddick is into the pit lane. I've had many incidents in real life. Actually, just recently got clipped at Coda going down the hill and through turn 2, and completely ruined the race. Car into the wall, actually. I got spun off into the wall, hit the wall at 60 miles an hour, and it was due to no fault of my own. Had a chance to win that day, and that's just, it's definitely heartbreaking to see it in sim racing. It's definitely heartbreaking when it happens in real life, and I know the emotions that these drivers have. They feel almost the same or even more emotions than we do in real life when something like this happens. It's just devastating for these drivers.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose at least these guys aren't in any physical danger when it happens, but I suppose, you know, you still feel the mental. I mean, I've done one of the worst times that I had. I remember, and yes, it was completely. It wasn't my fault to begin with, but then it turned into my fault. Daytona 500, 2015 or 2016. I did the whole first half of the race, stayed out of trouble completely. I was at the back of the field, wasn't trying to move forward, because you know what Daytona's like. And as soon as you start moving forward, I think it was lap 175, and I thought, right, I'm going to go for this. Started to go to the outside, and of course everybody crashed, everybody flew up the track. I was involved in the crash. I still kept going because I was running in the top 10 still. We'd had a lot of crashes and a lot of incidents, and I was going along, and the car was in terrible shape. It was crabbing. I was struggling to keep it on the track. The leaders come by. I'm looking in my mirrors. Didn't realise they were too wide. I went in the tri-oval. I tried to go up near the wall. Of course, the car doesn't steer properly. I bash into the wall, come across, and take out half of whoever was left.
Yeah, so it's definitely...
So if I can tell that embarrassing story on air, you know, then anybody who's made mistakes before is probably not going to feel quite as bad.
Yeah, and trust me, I know all too much about it and feel like I'm mostly on the receiving end of it, but I do make quite a few mistakes myself in real life. Some mistakes less costly than others, and I also get very lucky sometimes in real life as well. Just this weekend avoided probably one of the worst crashes I've seen in a while by maybe 6 inches. So it's also... sometimes you're on the receiving end of the good luck, and sometimes you're on the short end of the stick, and you get the bad luck.
What sort of series is that, then? What were you running in?
Global MX5 Cup Series. If you go back and, if anybody's interested, and you go back and look at the race replay from Saturday, from Circuit of the Americas just this past weekend, you'll see a very, very bad crash that took place, and I was very close to being involved in it.
I mean, that's not what you want. Was it race? Oh, I've got it actually on the on my other monitor. Which race was it?
It was race 1. It was a Saturday race.
And about how long through roughly?
It was actually first lap, just going through the S's and Coda, so not too far into this.
Let's have a look. This is radio commentary for everybody at home. So there's... Oh, a car gets spun in the middle of the track. Oh, God. Yeah. Yeah, that's not great, is it? Yikes.
And that car was complete...
Nobody can see, you know, that's the thing.
No, and it's also, people are very quick to blame the driver that hits him. Oh, you were so far back. Well, honestly, if you're closer to the incident and when it happens, it's actually easier to avoid it. than if you are, say, 20 cars back. And I know that's going to sound crazy,
no,
but
it's not, because you can see that incident and you can make a quick judgment to react, and you can just go one way or the other, and it either works or it doesn't. And also, if you're the car behind and you hit that driver, it's not going to make much difference, because you're not going to be in a big accident. You're 20, 30 cars back. Not only are you unsighted by the entire field in front of you, then there's more chance that there's smoke or debris or other things that will mean that you get distracted or you can't see. I think you're completely spot on, really.
yeah, and that's pretty much how it is. It's something that a lot of people don't believe. Excuse me. Actually, they think that it's very easy to avoid an incident whenever you're very back, far behind. Very good, examples of this is NASCAR. Whenever they have, 14, 15 car pileups, those drivers in the back that get piled up in it usually are pretty innocent in it. They can't see what's going on. They can only see the wreck. They can't see.
The spotter can only make an educated guess as to what's going on as well. They can say go high or go low, but by the time they go high or go low, there might be cars there. So
yeah, and that's also, that's why it's very, very tough. Racing's obviously a very tough sport, but that's also how it's how a lot of wrecks happen. And it looks as if I saw a little thing on the bottom. Arthur Chan went off the track. Just a quickie though, just 1 second, so nothing too catastrophic there.
I've raced in the BSRTC, and that's one of the, there's sometimes 60 cars in that race, and I've been at certain tracks, Montreal or Belle Isle, places like that, where you can come round the corner and there'll be 5 cars blocking the track. Watkins Glen's a classic. There's usually about per meeting. There's usually 1 10-car pile-up somewhere in Watkins Glen, and these big touring cars that are in front of you, you just you can't see anything, in them, not at all.
Yeah.
And Mike Monaghan, by the way, is within a second of Ruddock now as well.
Yeah, so Mike Monaghan also really closing it. Back to what you were saying also with Watkins Glen. Watkins Glen's also one of those tracks where a lot of incidents happen because it's a lot of blind corners. You can't see the incident until you're on top of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's also...
usually you do end up on top of it as well. There's a few times there's been cars piled on one another in that circuit, that's for sure. As usually somebody ends up over the fence and in the trees somewhere. That tends to be how it is on iRacing with Watkins. First race I ever did at Watkins was an IndyCar race. Well, first league race I ever did. It was a 30 odd car field. 2 teammates collided. They were running 4th and 5th, and it was just, imagine just after turn 1, between turns 1 and 2, 2 teammates collided in front of the whole track. Everyone crashed, and there must have been 15 drivers out instantly. And it's just the nature of it. I think this track, people tend to get away with things more just because of the nature of it. You don't see a lot of side-by-side racing here, so when there is a collision, usually 9 times out of 10, there'll be single car crashes or just 2 drivers crashing. You don't often get the big wrecks here.
Yeah, I do completely understand what you're saying there. This track is a track very similar to Watkins Glen in a lot of ways, but also in the way, like where you were saying, where it's a very easy track to not get involved in super high amount of incidents because it's a very narrow track, so you really can't go too wide anywhere. So even if there is a car that spins off, it is very easy to avoid that car because you don't also have to worry about that car that you're passing or that's passing you.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think this track reminds me a lot of the tracks that we have in Britain because of just the undulations and it's a similar sort of, compare it to something like an Alton Park or something like that, in terms of its nature. And I think that's where Britain and America, I think, excels. Is a lot of the tracks are sort of using the natural landscape and not so much man-made courses, but they just use what's around, and that's the same with Watkins. That's the same with this one. Very underrated little track, I think, is Mid-Ohio. I think a lot of people who come to the iRacing service don't know anything about it, and probably never raced here before. And then when they do, I think they enjoy it a lot. I certainly enjoy it. I certainly find it a challenge, and it's quite an easy track to drive round. If you're new to it, but it's certainly not an easy track to master.
Yeah, and that's exactly, it's easy to go fast around this place, but it's hard to get those last 3, 4, or even half second that's needed to really be fast here. That's where it's really, really hard as Alt goes into the pit lane. So Dylan Alt in that proximity racing car into the pit lane. I believe that's just for normal routine service. And one of those cars...
Pit lane time.
Yes, he is in the proximity of the pit lane. And one of those cars that definitely has just had some bad luck today that we really haven't talked about in a while now is Nathan Thomas in that Driftline racing car.
Oh. Yeah.
A little bit of contact, and they were just completely out. It was kind of a case of where they were met in the middle, and they got the worst end of the stick there. But yeah, very
yeah, it looks like Kevin Ford might have been trying to just tuck in behind and save fuel. I imagine that's probably what it looked like, but just kind of misjudged it. The thing with the Ford GT though is it is a lot longer than some of the other cars on the service, and I wonder if that's caught Kevin Ford out, because obviously he's used to generally to the Ford Mustang.
Yeah, it's even longer than the Ford Mustang, and the Ford Mustang is a little bit of a longer car in the service. But Mike Monahan into the pit lane, and he's just going to be in for his routine service. We are now 2 hours and 2 minutes into this race on lap 92. We have just about 13 more minutes, and there we go, splash and dash for Mike Monahan. Exactly what I thought he was going to do there. So pretty much what I'm expecting.
We've done a lot of laps here today.
Yeah, it's definitely what I'm expecting though from a lot of these teams is just a quick splash and dash to go to the end here. Try to get in and out of the pit lane as fast as possible. Don't try to change any tires.
It is a smart play to minimise your pit lane time. Let's have a look at it for Monahan then. The pit lane, the actual pit stop time was 10.03 seconds, 33.3 in the pit lane. Fastest stop that we've seen so far is Mike Ruddock, 8.62, with only 30.3 seconds in the lane itself. So that's pretty good indeed. In GT3 then, Brandon Whitworth and Tyler Shiflett separated by 12 seconds with 12 minutes to go. And the lap times, well, it's hard to tell what the lap times are because Shiflett, I assume, had just been in the pits.
Yes, I know. I just witnessed Tyler Shiflett in the pits. So, yeah, so Shiflett 12 seconds behind, and I believe Shiflett has got the race win pretty much here at this point over Whitworth, but you never know the kind of strategy.
Unless it's absolutely crazy strategy by Whitworth and he's managed to save God knows how many laps of fuel, but I somehow doubt it. I would imagine he's going to have to come to the pit soon. So Shiflett in the box seat. Bobby Childs isn't probably going to come into play here, I don't think. I think he's too far behind. He's 41 seconds behind. And really it's going to be, yeah, it might be 7 or 8 seconds behind still.
Yeah, and it's even hard to say though because he's 28.9 seconds ahead, and like you had said, Michael Ruddock was the one who has the fastest pit stop with a 30.45. Right now he would
that's off Shiflett, yeah, and then another 12 seconds to Whitworth.
Yeah, so if it depends on how long Whitworth's pit stop is. If Whitworth has an absolutely amazing pit stop, I think that he's definitely not going to be behind Bobby Childs, but if he has a long pit stop and he has to sit in the box for a long period of time, then he could possibly come out behind Bobby Childs.
It's very possible. Need to have a fairly slick pit stop with no issues. It's obviously easier said than done. Just run you down the order. with 10 minutes to go then here on the Extreme Motorsports Ricmotech World Challenge. Mike Dam leads the way by 28 seconds over Travis Schwenke, and it's David Payton in third. We've not really talked about him very much, but he does lie there in third. Russell Ruddock in fourth, Jennifer McDonald fifth, after leading pretty much all of the race really, and having that pit lane limiter issue. Mike Monaghan in sixth, then Arthur Chan seventh, Dylan Holt eighth, Kevin Ford in ninth, and then into GTD with Brandon Whitworth ahead of Tyler Shiflett, but we do believe he's going to have to make another pit stop. And is this indeed it? No, he carries on. So Whitworth then, is he trying to stretch this out? It's going to be very difficult. He's got a 12-second lead. We'll see if he can go any longer. Tyler Shiflett in second place, Bobby Charles in third, and Edgar Sancinelli is taken over from Michael Key in the Frito Sport racing car. The only retirement, 14 drivers, 14 teams started, just the one retirement. That was Stephen Thomas with accident damage.
And Mike Cobb, as you can see there on the bottom, he is actually not racing race control tonight, so he is not one of your starting grid drivers, just for those interested. And yeah, so Whitworth right now, 12 seconds over Shiflett. If he has pulled out this strategy, I don't even know what he has done, and I need to figure out what he's done to be able to do this in my own endurance races, because that would be absolutely incredible if he has figured out how to save another 9 minutes of fuel. So now we're just about 9 minutes, almost 8 minutes left in the Ricmotech World Challenge race here at Mid-Ohio, round 4 of the championship, I believe, yes, here in Mid-Ohio. And after this round, we have just 4 rounds to go after this round. So this is when I think you really are going to start seeing the team start to push harder and harder and harder and try to get every last bit of points that they can possibly get. But going back to that incident earlier that happened with Aeronam and McDonald, she's only in 5th, and she's really not catching Russ Ruddock. So I believe McDonald in that the Team Street Survival team are pretty much going to finish out where they are.
I think that's what Aeronam was saying, though, isn't it? I think it's the old tyres coming into play for them. They are lapping. Jennifer is lapping pretty much the same pace as the leader at the moment, so it's easy to say what if, and you know that's a bit of a cop out for us commentators. But without that pit limiter issue, I think it would have been a pretty easy win for McDonald and Nom.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that one. If they hadn't had that issue, it's never
McDonald
a guaranteed thing.
Sorry to interrupt. McDonald has lost some time to Dan, but it's only about 10 seconds, and she had 45 seconds of lead.
Yeah, and it's never a guaranteed thing to win, but you can definitely have a shot. That's definitely what they had. So really unfortunate for them.
They maximised the chance that they had, didn't they, up until that point? And you know, yeah, I think if the bookies had been involved, they'd have probably called all the betting off at that point, and then swiftly reopened it. I think once the pit limiter was stuck on. Unbelievable, though. I've not seen that in quite some time. What a shame that was.
Yeah, definitely a shame for them. So, always not what you want to see, but that is the luck in racing, and that is just racing in general. As I think Chan actually just said his personal best lap of the race of 1:18.7. So that's a bit too late to be setting his fastest lap, but he is really closing in on Monahan.
Isn't it? At this point.
Yeah, at this point in the race, it's a long way into the race, just about 6 minutes left to go, and he's setting the fastest lap, personal best lap of the race, so good for him, but I think you got your car just coming in just a little bit too late.
Yeah, I wonder if he's put new tyres on that, actually. Let's have a look at his... In fact, he can't have done it, because he was only 8.8 seconds in the pits. So, I guess he's just finding that rhythm with the Ford GT at this point, the Axon racing car. And yeah, Arthur Chan on his way, and you know, he is closing quite quickly on Mike Monaghan, but he's going to have to close even quicker than this if he wants to challenge for that 6th place. I want to see what he does this time round, actually, because he looks like he's driving really well. So I just want to see what the lap time is as he finishes lap 95. On 18.9. It's a decent time, actually. It's only 0.7 of a second slower than the lead.
Yeah, not too bad for him at all. And I'm just looking at the current championship standings right now. Excite Energy, the team that is in P2, currently being driven by Travis Swinky, is currently leading the championship by just about... trying to look through here. Don't have any standings for you there, but that is, they are leading the championship at this point in the GTLM class over Cryptology Orange, the team that is currently leading, who currently has 1 win in this series. Excite Energy currently has 1 win as well out of the 3 current starts that they have had. So right now, I believe that Cryptology Orange will take over the lead, and Flying Tortoise Racing, who did move up 1 spot after the last round in Suzuka, they are currently in P4. So just a little bit of your championship standings there and where they are in this race. Now, if we look over at your GTD standings, D2D Motorsports Gold has had the most starts and has had 3 starts and 1 win so far in the series. They lead over D2D Motorsports Blue, who has currently had 0 wins in the series, but D2D Motorsports Blue, I believe, will take over the championship with Brandon Whitworth if he can keep that lead to the end over Bobby Childs, who is in the D2D Motorsports Gold car, who currently sits P3 in class.
Yeah, and I think they've done a really good job, that team, actually, of putting together 2 solid performances. I'm very happy. There's Schwenke on his merry way, 118.9 on the previous lap. Not bad at all. Big consistency for them, really. Their best lap was only an 18.1 compared to the 17.0 of Aeronom, which is the fastest lap of the race. But just consistency is winning out, and just solid driving. I don't know if Schwenke's going to be that happy with being 30 seconds behind Mike Dam, but because also bear in mind there would have probably been another 30 seconds behind Street Survival. But P2, you can never complain about that time.
No, you definitely can never complain about P2, but I think at this point, Travis Swinky's just trying to just baby the car home at this point. He knows that he's got a 33-second advantage over David Payton in P3, and he's got a 30-second advantage, or he's behind 30 seconds to Mike Dam. I think he's just going to try to baby the car home in the last 2 minutes of this race as we have crossed over lap 100 in this race. We are now on lap 101 with just about 2 minutes to go. I believe we will see white flag next time by.
Yeah, there's absolutely no reason for Travis Schwenke to be pushing here, and he isn't doing. He's just driving nicely within himself, and certainly just wanting to bring the car home. I have seen people have incidents when they are driving a bit slower, but Schwenke's very experienced. He's got nearly 7,000 I rating himself, just as we were talking about Aeronom earlier on. So yeah, he's a very solid driver. He's been a fan favourite in this series, and surely he's going to be on the way to P2. Mike Dam is going to start what should be the final lap here, and Dam, well, he's done a very good job since getting into the car halfway through time.
Yes, an amazing job, but as we look into P7, sorry to take you off what Mike Dam is doing, it's now 0.7 of a second to Chan over, Monaghan has 0.7 of a second over Chan right now, so that is a very close battle right now indeed. So we'll see if Chan has any chance of making a move there, but I believe, like you said, this is white flag. There is 2 hours 15 minutes. We have just crossed over, as I'm trying to say that, over that, and
Oh, no. Wait,
Travis.
Monaghan and Chan are suddenly only 0.6 of a second apart. And it says Tyler Shiflett's crashed. What's happened? I know we're on the final lap, but what has happened to Shiflett? Is it we're going to have some contact?
Oh, yes.
Contact?
It looked like it was Arthur. Yeah, I believe that was Arthur Chan that made the contact as well.
Here comes Mike Dam, Tyler. He's going to take the win.
Yeah, Mike Dam going to come around the final penultimate corner now. Through the final corner, it's going to be a win for Cryptology Orange and a win for Mike Dam in amazing fashion here. 28 seconds over Travis Swinky, but this is the battle that we want to keep an eye on right here. Half a second now, Monahan to Chan. I think Chan is now going to really start to have to push the issue, force the issue, push the car down the inside, even if it's not maybe the cleanest move in the world. He's now 0.3 of a second. He's in the draft of Monahan now, so he's currently not close enough.
Oh, Monahan's wide. He's a bit wide. Chan.
Monahan's made a mistake.
There, and he's got the pace underneath him. He's got the grip in the Ford GT. He's been putting fast laps in. Can Arthur Chan squeeze an extra position out of this race? We thought it was going to be impossible. Schwenke takes second, and Brandon Whitworth is going to be coming home. Now he's in the final corner, and Brandon Whitworth round the right-hander and through the left, and he's going to take the win in GTD. Brilliant, brilliant stuff by Brandon Whitworth. And we're going to see this one now. And Chan has had to. Chan's in the pit lane. What's he done there?
Because of that incident with taking out Tyler Shiflett, Arthur Chan was black flagged for causing the incident.
Oh wow! So he's had to take a drive-through penalty essentially, hasn't he?
Yep. On the last lap, which makes it even worse.
There has to be a very, very quick decision by race control when it's so close to the end. But it was potentially it's a tough one. I think it's one of those, isn't it? Drivers are fighting hard on the. Should we have another look at it now that we've got a chance to look at it properly? With no sort of time pressure. Let's have a little look. It goes up the inside.
Yeah, I put that one on Chan there.
It's tough though.
Yeah, I kind of put that one on Chan there. He really kind of put himself in that position. He really shouldn't have been diving down the inside there. It's a little bit of an aggressive move. Yes, you are going for it, and yes, he's not just getting out of your way, but that's also not his job to get out of your way. You're supposed to, the faster cars are always supposed to get around the slower cars, so.
You could argue, though, and I can argue two things on this, and again, we're not, you know, I'm more inclined to say that's a racing incident, and I'll tell you why. I think that Chan was trying very hard to stay on the inside line. He didn't really go in super hot. Yes, he slightly missed the apex. I feel like Tyler, though, potentially could, given the race situation and the fact of where he was in relation to his competition, could have potentially just given him the line, really, there. And
no, I completely agree with you on that one.
Allow that battle to bypass you, because you're not involved in that battle. So it is a tough one, mate. I must admit. I don't think the penalty is necessarily a bad decision. I don't know if I would have made that particular decision, but I wouldn't put it this way. I wouldn't say that it's wrong that they've given that, but I personally wouldn't have given it. But I don't think you can say it's right or wrong.
No, I completely agree with you on that one. I can see it going both ways as well. But here's your race results. Mike Dam and Cryptology Orange win over Travis Swinky by 28 seconds in that Excite Energy racing car. David Payton in the Exalt racing car come home in P3. Then this is in your GTLM class. Michael Ruddock for Flying Tortoise Moto come Motorsport, I believe, come in third. Jennifer McDonald in the Team Street Survival come home fifth. Michael Monahan in the Bulgon Racing. Arthur Chan in the Axon Racing car come home in 7th. Dylan Alt 8th. Kevin Ford in the Ricmotech Motorsports entry. And Brandon Whitworth round out your top 10 overall and first. And they are also P1 in the GTD class in that D2D Motorsports blue car. Tyler Shiflett comes home second in GTD, and Bobby Childs rounds out your podium in the D2D Motorsports gold car. Edgar Sancinelli is in 4th in the GTD class in the Fruto Motorsport car. Stephen Thomas with a retirement early on comes home in 14th and 5th spot in class in the Driftline racing car, and Ryan Cobb was in race control tonight.
All right, nice one, Tyler. And yeah, it was a good race. I mean, there were some quite large gaps at the front, but we saw some good battling throughout the field. So a few good overtakes, couple of incidents, a little bit of controversy. That's kind of what we like here on Apex Racing TV. Just having a quick look. I'm going to just wait for a minute or two, Tyler, and just see if any of the drivers want to come and speak to us. If not, I'll be inclined to move on, because it is 2:30 in the morning. So we'll see if anybody wants to come in. What are your thoughts on what we've seen tonight at Mid-Ohio?
It was an amazing race. These drivers really gave it everything that they got. You really saw that on the last lap with that incident between Tyler Shiflett, I believe, and Arthur Chan. So, yeah, we really saw the elbows kind of getting put out, really showing, I need to move up forward in this race. And I think that's, really what we saw throughout the entire race. Really unlucky, though, for Team Street Survival after leading the race by an absolute 1.5 miles. They come home 5th, though. So very unlucky for that team. I can't say that they would have for sure won it, but they would have had an extremely good shot at it. But yeah, it was an amazing race in my opinion.
Nice one.
Oh, sorry. I was going to also add into that.
We're going to send out a search party for you.
Had an unexpected call, so that I needed to take, and yeah, took a lot longer than I expected. So I was able to get back in time for the last one. So it was still, though, for the first half of the race, from what I was witnessing, especially until I did see the issue where Jennifer McDonald, and I really do feel bad for Team Street Survival after having that really unfortunate technical issue with the pit limiter still being active, and that really hurt Aeronauts. I know Aeronauts would have loved to have won that race.
Yeah, I think you're completely right, but things like that sometimes happen, and yeah, that's all we can really say. But I think that's going to be it from us here tonight here on Apex Racing TV, the Ricmotech World Challenge. We don't have any drivers come speak to us, so we are going to make a swift exit. From myself, Andrew Woodhouse, from Tyler Maxon and Tyler Vickery, it's goodbye from us, and we'll see you guys in the next one.